The story of Eutychus might be one of the most relatable and surprising moments in the New Testament. You can find it in Acts 20. The Apostle Paul was in the city of Troas, and it was the last time he would see the believers there. Wanting to give them as much teaching as possible, he preached late into the night. The gathering was on the third floor of a building, and the room was packed with people. Oil lamps flickered as the hours dragged on, and Paul continued speaking well past midnight. Sitting in a window was a young man named Eutychus. As Paul kept preaching, Eutychus began to sink into a deep sleep. Finally, he was overcome and fell out of the window, tumbling 3 stories down to the ground. The people rushed outside and picked him up, and he was dead. Imagine the shock that swept through the room. A night of worship and fellowship had turned into tragedy. But Paul, full of faith, went down, bent over the young man, took him in his arms and said, "Do not be alarmed, for his life is in him." By the power of God, Eutychus was raised back to life. The believers were comforted, and they brought him home alive. Afterward, Paul went back upstairs, broke bread with them, and continued teaching until daybreak. This unusual event carries several lessons. First, it reminds us of the humanity of the early church. They were ordinary people like us. A young man falling asleep during a long sermon is something many of us can understand. But second, it shows us the power of God working through Paul. Even in the midst of an accident and death, God's resurrection power brought life again. The name Eutychus means fortunate or lucky, and truly he was fortunate that night. But more than luck, it was the grace of God that spared him. His story is a reminder that life is fragile. None of us know what tomorrow holds, but God is sovereign over life and death. Some might laugh at Eutychus for dozing off during Paul's sermon, but his story points us to a deeper truth. Even in moments of weakness, God's mercy is greater. He can take tragedy and turn it into testimony. Eutychus may only appear in a few verses, but his story continues to encourage believers that the same God who raised him up is still alive and working today. If you enjoyed learning about the Bible, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about what story you want to see next.